Mr. Leng.
Mr. Speaker, may I have your permission to take questions 6 to 13 in the order paper together?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Various members have filed questions on the Manpower for Strategic Economic Priorities Scheme, or the MSEP scheme, which the Ministry of Trade and Industry and the Ministry of Manpower launched last month. Members of the House, it is important for us to understand the intent of the MSEP. This scheme is designed to work in tandem with the various government programs that support Singapore's economic priorities. Firms that participate in these programs contribute towards Singapore's competitiveness and generate economic opportunities for Singaporeans. MSEP provides these firms with time-bound manpower flexibilities, should these firms require it. At the same time, these firms should also be taking steps to develop the local talent pipeline. Specifically, the scheme gives qualifying firms the flexibility to temporarily hire S-Pass and work permit holders above the prevailing dependency ratio ceiling, or DRC, and the S-Pass sub-DRC. To qualify, firms must participate in programs or activities in line with one of the following key economic priorities, namely, 1, investments that support Singapore's hub strategy. 2, innovation or research and development, R&D. Or 3, internationalization. Now, these are important priorities for us to grow our economy and to create more economic opportunities for Singaporeans. We call this Condition 1. Since the flexibilities afforded are only temporary, firms will need to develop their local workforce to meet their longer-term needs. And we want to ensure that these firms start expanding their local talent pipeline early. As such, firms must also commit to employ or train locals while benefiting from the flexibilities. And this we call Condition 2. So let me turn to the specific questions in the 3 groups. First, I will address questions on Condition 1, then on Condition 2, and lastly, questions which fall under neither category. Condition 1, which is participating in key economic priorities. Mr. Liang Eng Hwa and Mr. Patrick Tay have asked how the ministry will safeguard against abuse of these work passes and ascertain that foreign workers hired under the MSEP scheme will be deployed in areas that advance Singapore's economic goals. This is inherent in the design of Condition 1. The 16 programs or activities under Condition 1 are specially selected to be in line with our economic priorities. In this way, MSEP is selective in targeting firms or investments that will grow our economy and also grow our competitiveness. To take part in these programs, these firms would have worked closely with our economic agencies like the Economic Development Board, EDB, or Enterprise Singapore, ESG. Only about 1,000 firms will meet the qualifying criteria. This represents less than 1% of all registered business entities in Singapore. So one example of a Condition 1 program is Scale Up SG. This is Enterprise Singapore's flagship program to support local companies with high growth potential to scale effectively and become leaders in their fields and future global champions. As these companies grow, they will contribute to Singapore's economy, create good jobs for Singaporeans, and strengthen the Singapore brand. Let me share with members an example of a firm under Scale Up SG. Last month, I visited Goldbell Engineering, which is a market leader in industrial vehicle leasing. They have the largest fleet in Singapore at over 8,500 units. They shared with me their ambitious plans to expand to other businesses such as electric car sharing with the acquisition of Blue SG and financial services. Enterprise Singapore has worked with GoBell for the last 5 years and is very familiar with GoBell's plans. About 70% of GoBell's 1,000-strong workforce are Singaporeans and permanent residents. For GoBell, productivity improvement through upskilling and automation remains as the main solution to labor shortages, especially for blue-collar workers. As it pushes these transformation and growth plans, MSEP will enable GoBell to move fast to seize these opportunities with additional workers. I'm excited to see GoBell and other such needle-moving firms make clear and deliberate efforts to expand, because I know this growth will create good opportunities for Singapore and Singaporeans. This is the archetype of firms which the MSEP scheme is targeted at. Because the scheme has been designed to be highly selective at the firm level, there is no need to stipulate further criteria on the specific deployment of each individual worker hired under the MSEP scheme, because such micromanagement would not be helpful for the firms. Mr. Edward Chia, Mr. Liang Eng-Hua, and Mr. Don Wee asked if the white list of programs under Condition 1 can be expanded to cover 3 other firm archetypes. Again, I must underscore that MSEP will be selective and highly targeted, as I've just explained. First, for SMEs and smaller companies, I would like to reassure Mr. Liang and Mr. Edward Chia that such firms can already qualify for MSEP as long as they are participating in the programs under Condition 1. For example, they can qualify if they take part in programs such as Scale Up SG, which I described earlier, or if they successfully raise funds from recognized investment firms. Next, outsourced service providers. We recognize that needle-moving firms will rely on an ecosystem of outsourced service providers, including professional services firms. However, we will not extend MSEP to these outsourced service providers solely because of who their clients are. Instead, these outsourced service providers need to be themselves taking part in Condition 1 schemes in order for them to qualify for MSEP. Finally, the firms in the essential services. Now, I'd like to reassure Mr. Edward Chia that there are other measures already in place to ensure that firms which provide essential services like healthcare and the cleaning of public housing estates, they have access to foreign manpower for essential functions. Mr. Gerald Giam also asked about the signals as well as the incentives MSEP is sending on automation and reliance on foreign workers. I hope that as a result of the explanation, he can see and appreciate how MSEP is about helping firms to create more opportunities for Singapore. In fact, some of the Condition 1 programs are related not just to growth, but also to help firms to become more productive at the same time through innovation and internationalization. To reduce the reliance on large numbers of low and mid-skilled foreign workers and continue in their automation journeys, firms will need to pivot and transform. And this is what Condition 1 is fundamentally about, to support our strategic economic priorities. To further assure the member, MSEP only provides time-limited support. So even if a company uses additional foreign workers to transform initially, these flexibilities are time-limited, and they will cease after the support period. Coming to Condition 2, which is commitment to hiring and training locals. Mr. Patrick Tay, Mr. Desmond Chu, and Mr. Yip Hong Wing asked how this scheme will benefit local PMEs and workers, and whether there's any impact on local wages and job opportunities, and what will the government do to level the playing field. Mr. Gerald Giam also asked if this scheme affects firms' incentives to develop a Singaporean core. Even though Condition 1 is already highly selective to target growth opportunities for Singapore, we have designed MSEP to also have Condition 2. This condition requires firms to hire and train local workers to take on new jobs as these firms grow. MSEP works alongside existing government efforts to develop the local talent pipeline, including those under Workforce Singapore or WSG and Skills Future Singapore SSG. To Mr. Liang's question, MSEP is part of a range of initiatives to benefit a larger group of Singaporeans. Mid-career PMETs will continue to benefit from existing government programs such as CCPs, the Career Conversion Programs under WSG, and the Skills Future Career Transition Program under SSG. Where such programs lead to a net increase in local hires, this can count toward meeting firms' Condition 2 commitments. There are also other specific questions asked about the design of Condition 2. Mr. Sean Huang, in a separate written PQ, and Mr. Liang asked how the ministry will ensure that the training and hiring commitments under Condition 2 are adhered to, how they are conducted at the right level, and whether they are efficacious and relevant. Ultimately, these are firms that support our strategic economic priorities and with which we've worked very closely with. They know that if they succeed, they will need more local workers with the right skills. And it is good business sense to invest in a local talent pipeline while they move to seize new opportunities. On hiring commitments, firms can choose to hire local workers through their own channels or through government programs, as long as these locals are paid above the local qualifying salary of $1,400. Such firms will need to achieve a net increase in local hires. In this tight labor market that we have today, we are conscious that it is not realistic to expect all firms to meet this hiring criteria. As such, there is also an option for a firm to commit to train local workers to fulfill Condition 2. Firms can do so by sending their local workers to a wide list of training programs. These are established training programs which have demonstrated good outcomes for participants in terms of enhancing their job roles and raising their wages. For instance, WSG's redeployment or job redesign, reskilling, career conversion programs are whitelisted under Condition 2. These programs allow firms to send workers for reskilling, to take on redesigned and enhanced job roles. One specific example is the CCP for Infocom Professionals, the 5G, which reskills Infocom professionals to take on deep tech, end user and support roles relating to 5G networks and technologies. Regardless of whether firms choose to meet Condition 2 through hiring or training commitments, all MSEP firms will also need to minimally maintain their local workforce share during the MSEP support period. Finally, there's a third group of questions from various members which falls under neither Condition 1 nor Condition 2. So to Mr. Liang's question, the number of additional S passes and work permits to be issued will really depend on the take-up of MSEP. While there are about 1,000 firms that are eligible under Condition 1, not all may require MSEP support. On the other hand, the greater the take-up rate, the greater the eventual number of locals who would be hired or be trained. We will monitor the take-up rate closely and we will review the scheme accordingly. To Mr. Yip Hon Wing's question on the renewal process for work passes, additional work passes granted under the MSEP scheme can be renewed so long as the firm has sufficient quota. This can be achieved if the firm successfully renews its MSEP support by meeting the renewal conditions. Alternatively, the firm can hire more locals to unlock a higher mainstream foreign worker quota. To Mr. Chu's question, we take workplace fairness issues seriously. Firms that have breached the Fair Consideration Framework, or SCF, or the Tripartite Guidelines on Fair Employment Practices, or TGFEP, may be barred from work pass privileges, and they will not be able to benefit from MSEP. Firms that are still undergoing investigations will be assessed on a case-by-case basis. As members should be aware, we are taking a very significant step forward of enshrining the TGFEP in law, and we will share more details in due course. We will take reference from the penalty framework of the new legislation when deciding on the treatment of such firms. To conclude, members of the House, manpower should not be a constraint to growth. What is most important is to ensure that Singaporeans can benefit from our economic priorities. MSEP will do so in two ways: directly through the creation of hiring or training opportunities, and more significantly, indirectly, through the growth of needle-moving companies which support our strategic economic priorities. Designed with these principal objectives in mind, MSEP will strengthen our competitiveness. The government will continue to monitor the outcomes of the MSEP scheme and will enable us to generate economic opportunities and provide better outcomes for Singaporeans. Thank you.
Leng.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, credit to the MOM and MTI, and of course, Mr. Tan See Leng for relentlessly and working and improving and refreshing our framework, our schemes, to manage our foreign manpower needs. So in the last 1 year, we now have more schemes. We have MSEP, we have One Pass, we have Compass, which are all very specific and targeted schemes by design. And understandably, it would also add a lot, add to the overall complexity of our foreign manpower management system. We have condition 1, condition 2, such more and more to count. To kind of be assessed, whether you can fit into that and criteria. So can I ask the Minister whether would the MOM now need a bigger bureaucracy to administer these schemes? You mentioned there's 1,000 companies eligible for the MSEP, and if 500 come to apply and some of the appeal cases, there'll be a lot to manage as well. Secondly, importantly, how does MOM guard against companies gaming and circumventing some of these qualifying criteria or some of the commitments they have made to the schemes? Thank you.
I thank the member for his question. We acknowledge that over the last 1 year, we have significant refinements in terms of our entire employment pass framework. In the process of rolling out Compass, the ONE pass, now the MSEP scheme, which we committed to in our last budget COS, we have ensured that the Compass scheme has been appropriately resourced. The departments are there to conduct the relevant checks, including sieving out potential cases of false salary declarations where such declarations are needed. And of course, in addition, MOM also proactively identifies employers and work pass holders who flout or breach our rules. And some of them also get surfaced to us through whistleblowers, and of course the rest are detected either through audits or inspection. So that covers a very broad framework. On top of that, with the MSEP scheme, with the ONE pass, MOM also works with the different sector agencies, just to name a few. So through MTI itself, EDB, ESG, Singapore Tourism Board. We also work closely with IMDA and with MPA and various other agencies, including under MND itself, to come up in the different areas where we sieve out the attractiveness of our economy, getting top talent to come in. We actually work with these sector agencies to roll out some of these schemes ourselves. So thank you for the compliment. I think the entire team, we have also tweaked it based on some of the PQs that's been brought up and the feedback that we've gotten from the ground as well. And we hope that collectively we can work in making sure that Singapore remains always at the top of the league tables in terms of our competitiveness to the world. Thank you.
Sir Shah.
Thank you. Thank you, Speaker. I'd like to ask the Minister that what are the evaluation and success metrics of this new MSEP scheme in terms of evaluating how effective and successful this scheme is? And second question, if there are other local firms who may not be part of the condition one but able to meet these metrics, will the Ministry be open to listening to their appeals? Thank you.
I thank Mr. Edward Chia for his question. The key success factor for the MSEP scheme are the economic outcomes. We are focusing on the, under condition one, the three deliverables. One, in terms of our innovation as research and development hub. Of course, investments into ensuring that we continue to become and maintaining our status as the hub, not just in the region, but globally. And the third thing, how do we help these companies internationalize? So these are very clear strategic economic priorities where we can ascertain clearly what the outcomes will be. So I don't think we need to go into the granularity in terms of specific KRAs or KPIs concerned, because these are very broad overarching objectives. Now, with regards to helping and widening it for more SMEs, we are at a very early stage in terms of working with many of the firms, and these 1,000 firms that we talked about, they are already very well known to the agencies that I've mentioned earlier on, EDB, ESG, Singapore Tourism Board, IMDA, MPA, and amongst others. The plan is to ensure that with the in-depth knowledge of each one of these firms, as we roll out the scheme to see that direct benefit, once we have a very clear path along the way as the economy changes, as it restructures, as it transforms, we are not averse to rolling out for more firms, so long as they fit into that broad overarching objectives of improving our competitiveness and at the same time making sure that our locals continue to get adequately trained, adequately employed, and they have good career and wage progression. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Leng.
I thank the Minister for his reply. My SQ pertains to SMEs. Often it is the SMEs who will be in need of such foreign workers, and only a small number of firms will meet the criteria for MSEP. As such, how can we help SMEs that are competing with the bigger companies to stay afloat and meet their manpower needs? Thank you.
The indirect, I thank the member for his supplementary question. Indeed, in the initial step, which is quite a landmark step, the plan is to increase the number of training opportunities and the hiring opportunities for our locals. We believe that that would then directly transform into increased trained pool of local talent for many of the SMEs to eventually be able to tap into. Then the indirect way is the MSEP also works alongside our existing government efforts to develop the local talent pipeline, including those under WSG and the SSG programs. So CCPs, the Career Conversion Program under the WSG, as well as the Skills Future Career Transition Program under SSGs, train the locals for employment, including in high-growth sectors such as the ICT. Now, some SMEs can already qualify for MSEP as long as they are participating in programs under Condition 1. As I've shared earlier on, if they take part in programs such as the Scale Up SG, which I've earlier explained or described in my reply, or if they can successfully raise funds from recognized investment firms, these SMEs can also participate and benefit from the MSEP program. We all have to, like what they said, the journey of 1,000 miles begin with the first step. This is the first few small steps that we have taken upon ourselves to move this forward. And what we have incorporated in these small steps are actually a list of 16 policies that SMEs can look and see how they can leverage on these 16 policies and tap on them to move forward and be able to benefit from the scheme itself. I hope that covers what the honourable member is asking. Thank you.
Mr. Leon Pereira.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. First supplementary question to the Honourable Minister is the government still planning to cap the ratio of foreign workers at 1/3 of the overall workforce? And does the introduction of MSEP put us at risk of breaching that cap? And the reason I ask this is because I think this cap of 1/3 of the workforce, which was alluded to in the Economic Strategies report of 2010, is something that has been affirmed at various points and for quite some time, and most recently by DPM, Mr. Lawrence Wong in this House, I think last year. Secondly, of the 1,000 companies that are deemed to be eligible to for MSEP, and apologies if I missed this, what is the percentage that are foreign MNCs versus local enterprises? And lastly, I think when introducing MSEP, the government has previously taken the view that there will be no U-turns, and this must be made very clear to the business sector. So does the introduction of MSEP, which is giving companies extra foreign worker quota, amount to a U-turn in the government's foreign manpower policies, or how will the government manage the risk that it will be seen by the business sector as a U-turn or as a sign that possibly in the future the government will U-turn and sort of make some concessions onto this foreign manpower policy and therefore lessen the drive to increase productivity and strengthen the Singapore core, which is the acknowledged policy aim of the government? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I thank Mr. Leon for his, I think 5 or 6 SQs. I mean, yeah, inherent in your 3 SQ, you have a sub numeral A, B, and C, and then there's a Roman numeral 1 and 2 and 3. I would try to answer each one of them, but obviously because it's not a prepared written form, I will forget some parts. So you help me to fill in with those that I have not been able to answer. I remember the last part, and that is the first and the last, and that is the cap at 1/3 in terms of our workforce, and this thing about whether there's a U-turn. What we have done is to, in all of our workforce policies, is to continue to make sure that the talent in the EP as well as the SPA segment continues to move up to the top, to be pegged to the top 1/3 of the wages of our Singaporean local talent. In terms of capping the 1/3, I think it's really a function of the needs of the economy. I don't think that it is at this particular point in time. For me, I need to go back and refer back to the 2010 notes that you were talking about. I don't have the context of it with me at this particular point in time. So let me just sort of clarify, in at least for the last 1 year, in terms of whether it is the ONE pass, Compass framework, raising the qualifying salary for EPs, and separating the EP into the financial and the non-financial part in terms of the qualifying salary, as well as the SPAS, is meant to achieve that outcome over the next few years. Now, with regards to MSEP, it is not a U-turn. I've said before, under condition 1, we live in a rapidly evolving rapidly disrupting world. Today, there are significant opportunities for our country to continue to boost our competitiveness and to grasp these opportunities internationally. Continue to ensure that we not just maintain our hub status, but to move ahead and pull ahead. And at the same time, significant opportunities for us to be able to tap into the R&D segment, for us to continue to pivot and transform ourselves. Hence, the MSEP scheme was conceived to capture this very, very tight space of the three specific economic priorities that I've shared very early on. So there is no U-turn. We continue to nudge. We continue to persuade our companies to automate. We continue to persuade our companies to up the productivity and to increase the value add. But in the process of getting there,
Please carry on.
okay.
Wrong button.
Yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Saved by the bell. In our process of getting there, this is how we see we can help a very highly selected group of companies that we have been working with, and we know that they are at the cusp of being able to make that significant pivot and to help just give them the uplift that's necessary. And hence, it is very tightly scripted between condition 1 and condition 2. Now, I understand your apprehension, but on the other hand, you can see that within the House itself, you have got both sides. You've got members, fellow members of parliamentarians, who are asking, why can't we expand it even further? But we are saying that let's do this on a very tightly scripted and a very tightly, sort of very highly selective and differentiated scheme for these companies that can achieve. Now, I thought that was the gist of your two broad questions. I know you have a lot of subcategories. I'm happy to answer them if you think that I've not answered it adequately. Thank you very much.
Members are reminded that while this is a new year, the rules still remain. Please limit to 2 sub-questions so that others could query. Mr. Desmond Chu.
Minister, thank you for your assurance that the companies with bad practices will not be allowed to participate. I would like to ask, how nimble will the ministry be in adjusting the number of foreign manpower admitted through this scheme, especially in light of a slowing economy and possible increase in unemployment?
I thank the member for his very stark reminder, exhortation. Today, this scheme, this MSEP scheme, we are working with very closely with sector agencies. I've mentioned them, and I don't want to sound like a broken tape recorder, but we're working very closely with EDB, ESG, IMDA, Maritime Port Authority, and also Singapore Tourism Board. And inherent within the sector agencies, these are companies whom they have very close working relationships with. And so I would say that as an extrapolation of that, they do have that finger on the pulse. So to your exhortation, indeed, that is also our concern. Hence, as we move forward, we are very gingerly in terms of how we approach the numbers. And we will be very cautious and at the same time very nimble in rolling out this scheme, because we think that there's also some slowdown that we're experiencing moving in the quarters ahead. Thank you.
Don Wee.
Thank you, Speaker. So 1SQ. The few relevant MSEP firms that I have chatted with are appreciative of this new scheme. They raise concerns that their professional service providers like the audit firms and the corporate secretaries, which support their incorporation and growth, are also experiencing manpower challenges. So therefore, can MTI and MOM work with the Professional Services Program Office to include or to explore the inclusion of accountancy sector into this scheme? Thank you.
I thank the member for his question. let us have a good start in making sure that this MSEP scheme is a success. Today, by extension, if you want to extend by extending the MSEP support scheme to audit firms, I think would really be too broad-based, and it may run counter to MSEP itself, which is intended to be very highly selective. Today, audit firms, professional companies can work with WSG, can work with SSG to see how we can help them to scale up our locals to meet their manpower needs. I hope that provides adequate reassurance to the honourable member. Thank you.
Mr. Leong Mawai.
Speaker, I've heard over the last half an hour what the minister said about the various schemes that have brought into the job market since the last 1 year. But I still don't get, I want to ask the minister again, what exactly specifically is the process that the MOM will adopt to ensure that the Singaporeans are really getting the jobs after the MSET scheme is introduced, or for that matter, all the other schemes? For example, if there's no time limit, you employ a lot of foreigners, but there are no time limit to the foreigners. How do the Singaporeans take over the jobs eventually? Can you describe that process a bit more? This is my first question. Second question is that you haven't answered our fellow member Leong's question on whether it's a U-turn or not. You say you have to check the past information, but if in the past there was 33% kind of cap on the foreigners, then if you say that that is not necessarily the ratio now, that in fact is a U-turn, right? And Mr. Leong, Member Leong also asked about what are the number of percentage of Singaporean-owned firms and within the 1,000 firms that you have pointed out just now. Thank you.
I thank Mr. Leong for his question, but I think he probably did not capture the essence of what I was trying to tell him. And it's strange because on the one hand, I think Mr. Leong, who asked the question, seemed to not have an issue. Now, just to set it into perspective, the 30% cap, that was not the context of how I address that there's no U-turn. Because Mr. Leon Pereira's point about the U-turn was whether this MSEP scheme subsequent would, in terms of raising the sub-DRC numbers and also the work permit numbers above the prevailing quota, appears to be a U-turn. So, for the record, for the 1/3 ratio, the 30% ratio, we will continue to monitor this very closely. But the MSET, because of the very highly selective nature of the scheme, and because of the stringent criteria that we have applied for Condition 1 and Condition 2, we don't expect, in a penultimate, the numbers to affect the proportion significantly. Now, please remember, Mr. Leong, the MSEP is here to help us generate more economic opportunities for Singaporeans. Because in the second condition, it is about making sure that there are more training opportunities for Singaporeans and the jobs for Singaporeans. So don't look at it in isolation. The first condition is about our hub status, about our investments in R&D, and about how we internationalize our operations. But the second condition, Condition 2, is about the employment and the employability of our locals and the training of our locals. So today, we live in a rapidly changing and rapidly disrupting world. So how we allocate, how nimble we are able to allocate our manpower resources This will be critical to our success. Now, in terms of our commitments, we continue to track them. Our economic agencies also work with these companies under the program. And I think maybe you were not paying attention to what I said. I said that there's a time limit to MSEP. It is not indefinite. Thank you.